I'm going to ask you about the timing of table topics.
Thank you. Okay, so we have on table topics, 1 minute is green, a minute and a half is yellow, and 2 minutes is red. Then you have 30 seconds from that to wrap it up.
When I was really young, I discovered my dad's love of the Washington Redskins. So I decided he went to school at night and he was never there during the day. So I decided I can become a football fan. So and I had to be very little because we moved when I was 10 and I don't know how many times I watched football games. But I spent Sunday afternoon, and I believe at that time, maybe it was only the away games that were on, but I was thinking it was the home games, but not all the football games were on TV. So I sat with him. I'm not saying that I really knew what was happening at that football game, but I cheered every time he cheered. You know, it was very raw in there. So my question is, I probably should say, consequently, I'm a pro football fan, and I have a hard time with college football. You know, occasionally, if somebody's rooting or watching a game, I'll watch them, but it doesn't do much for me. They seem like little kids watching football, so not particularly a college fan. And I go to some high school. My question to this person is, are you a pro football fan, a college fan, high school fan, or no football fan at all? And I'm going to ask more.
No football fan at all.
Okay, you have to come up and tell us why.
For a minute.
My goodness.
For a minute.
All right, thank you. Well, I guess let's get started right away.
Just walk in there.
They'll teach you to be late. Well, no, I'm no fan of football. Not that I have anything against football. I played football in high school. Mainly, though, because my dad was a football star in high school, and so he thought that it would be great for building my character. I have to agree. It was great for building my character. I'll never forget one summer having to force myself at the very end of the summer to run a complete half mile down to the end of the road and barely making it back because I was getting ready for what they called summer practice. Summer practice was hell visiting Earth because it was Louisiana. And down there, it's as wet in the air, you may as well be swimming to be breathing. So I became a football player, but I just never got into watching sports at all, of any kind. So no football, no basketball, it all was boring to me to watch. However, and of course I've made my mark, unlike last time. The thing about, if I were to watch football, the one thing I could do is watch high school football if I knew some of the players. That's it.
Thank you. Fast forward a little. And now I'm in high school. And I went to football games. I can't say that I paid much attention to the football game. For me, it was all about the cheerleaders and the bands and my friends. And I even have a picture of me at a sophomore in high school at a football game. I was a Groveton Tiger and then transferred to be an Edison Eagle. My question is to John, and unfortunately John's going to have two questions, I guess. But my question is, did you go to your high school football games? And when you got home, did you know what the score was? Because every time my dad asked me the score, I had no earthly idea if we won, but I never knew the score. John.
Thank you, Carol. So high school football games, yeah, I did. But you're right, Carol, because you don't really pay that close of attention to the score. And to be perfectly honest, our teams were not very good, so it wasn't like you were excited to go because the team was well known or did well. So you were mainly there to hang out with your friends and talk to other people, and then find out what everyone was doing after the game. You know, really it was just a pre-meeting. And then most people, I think typically, and this might have been the same in your day, people leave at halftime.
Occasionally.
It's kind of how the high school games
After the
were.
band play.
Yep, unless you were a senior, then you would stick around. But for the most part, I did not concentrate on the score. I wasn't a huge high school football fan, mainly college. So the score of the games were not that great. And I think potentially our freshman year, we went like 2-9. So that could be part of it. Thank you, Carol.
Well, I'm yours to say.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. Has everyone seen 40-Year-Old Virgin? Where very hairy chest. Someone puts hot wax on them and a strip and rips it off. That's what I encounter every day at our store because it appears that everyone in the whole country has seen that movie, or at least that scene. Well, this morning I want to demonstrate the actual process of hair removal using wax and hopefully persuade you that that is actually not what happens. So waxing is actually a process where you remove the hair from the skin. You apply the wax and it actually takes the hair out of the hair follicle. So one question is, how long does my hair have to be waxed? Well, it has to be 1/4 inch. Now, who goes around measuring their hair, right? So 1/4 inch looks like a grain of rice. It's typically, you have to let your hair grow out 10 days to 2 weeks to have enough hair to actually wax. The other question is, how long does this last? Well, typically it'll last anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks. And the more often you wax, the longer the hair will be removed. The hair gets used to being yanked out of the hair follicles, so it takes it a while to come back after it's been yanked out. So at European Wax Center, we have our own distinct process of hair removal. One of the things that we have is our own patented wax. This is what our wax looks like. It's actually 100% beeswax. And if you were wondering why it's European Wax Center, that's because our wax is manufactured in Paris. That's why it's European. It's very gentle to the skin. All the other waxes out on the market have paraffins and chemicals in them, so that's why we take great pride in our wax. So I'm going to demonstrate our 4-step process. The first thing that we do is we actually clean the skin. So we have a pre-wax cleanser, so you clean the skin of any dirt, makeup, or lotion that's currently on the skin. Then we use a pre-wax oil, which we apply to the skin. This is a protective barrier between the skin and the wax so that the wax only adheres to the hair and not to your skin. The third thing is actually applying our comfort wax. Our wax goes on warm, not hot, so there's no way that it can actually burn you. It's as simple as that. The other thing we don't do is we never double dip. No double dipping. I've been to a party, you know, that's a no-no. It's also a no-no at your European Wax Center because once you've applied it to the skin, you obviously have whatever's on your skin and you don't want to contaminate the wax by putting the stick back in the wax. So we discard the stick every time we use it. Okay? So after the wax is hardened, let's just actually take it off. No strips, none of the things that you see on television where you're ripping it off like that. So, and basically that's it. You can look and you can see the hairs that have come off of your skin. You can actually too, waxing is an exfoliant on your skin. So you can see dead skin, all that kind of good stuff. So that's our process at European Wax Center. And as you can see, no problems. So questions from the audience.
How many men come to your place?
We have 10% corporate-wide, 10% of our clients are men. For women, we are a full body wax center, meaning we'll wax anything. For men, my joke is men keep your underwear on. We'll wax anything on men that's outside the underwear line. Not one of those kind of places. Daryl.
So to do a full body wax, do you have some kind of huge applicator, or do they dip into a tub, or how do they get the wax all over the
Well,
Dip the
we
person.
have two sizes of sticks. This stick that we have is our largest stick, actually, that we use. And then we have an infant. These are actually tongue depressors. I'm sure you've seen them. Then we have an infant tongue depressor, which is about half the size of this. The small one is used for like facial features, eyebrows, lips, anything on the face. Also, it's used on toes, fingers. This stick is actually used for everywhere else. You'd be surprised how much wax you can get on this stick. Our wax pots at our center are about 5 times larger than this. They're industrial size, so they hold quite a bit of wax.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
How many sticks does it take to do?
To get to the center of it.
Being the owner of the center, I am aware of how many sticks we use. Actually, each stick costs about a penny.
Oh, God.
So on just like my arm right here, we would use about 8 sticks for a lower arm. So we go through quite a number. We probably go through more tongue depressors than the hospital does. Any other questions? All right, I hope that you've enjoyed this. I hope to see all of you at our center soon.
Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and Deborah, what a great speech. Now, I did do some investigation beforehand, because I have to admit that I suggested something to Deborah that she thought it was, well, I won't tell you what she thought, but she explained to me, because she is not licensed, she could not wax another human being other than herself. And did I have a human being in mind? But we'll go on to that. Deborah, a great opener. You either know what the 40-year-old virgin is or you're dead. I believe that that's a good. Now, what was the other movie with Mel Gibson you mentioned?
What Women Want.
What Women Want. So you can add that to your repertoire. That would cover the whole facet. So one of the questions asked, was this topic relevant? Well, on the face of it, that was questionable. But once she popped that question, everybody perked up, because she could say, okay, this is going to be interesting with what Deborah's up to. So you got a great attention getter, and by the questions afterwards, I'd say you had everybody's attention. Now, I did enjoy the process you went through. You explained everything in the part, why you'd want to do this, and what the basic requirements are. So John's 1/4 inches of stubble would qualify as a 1/4 inch. To our guest is, we come from a lot of other parts of the nation. John is from Ohio, and believes Ohio State is wonderful. And most of us in the room do not share this opinion with him. But Deborah did draw us all into the speech. She covered how much the requirements are to avail yourself of her services, her company's services. And then she went through the steps. I'm glad you explained all about the cleaning
and then kind of like, I guess like aftershave, the other part perks up the hair, and then you slather on the waste, the wax, excuse me. The reason I slipped my tongue in that one is, how many tons of sticks do you have to take out in the trash can every day? I can just see this. A couple bags of mail come in, this great big carton of tongue depressors goes out the door.
And wax.
Huh?
And wax.
And wax. So I believe you met all the requirements of the project. It was well done, very interesting, great questions, guys. Brian, that was yesterday. How many percentage here, man? I just thought it was a perfect lead-in question. So, as I said, the only thing I would suggest to improve this at all would be a real person demonstration. So you should have brought one of your specialists along so we could lather it up somebody. Because we know we want to hear that rip, don't we, guys?
That's right.
Brian.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and welcome guests. Time is many things, and here are a couple of examples to illustrate what I mean by that. A couple weeks ago, Labor Day weekend, we are in Washington, D.C., and we were there for a family reunion. Had cousins from San Francisco, some folks coming down from Wisconsin, parents from Knoxville, my brother came up from Mississippi, and we all converged on D.C. and had a fantastic time, eating a lot of food. And one of my cousins in particular he's super funny. He was telling all these jokes, had us cracking up, saw a bunch of monuments. That time was both interesting and it was fun. So the monument portion, very interesting, seeing the history. Hanging out with the family, fun. So time can be interesting, time can be fun. Here's another example. 15 years ago, I'm in an operating room. I have on some scrubs. I'm there for the birth of my first child, a baby daughter. They bring her out, and they bring her over to me, and they give me scissors, and I get to cut the umbilical cord. So I cut the umbilical cord, and then they take her little foot, and they press it on this little ink pen, and they stamp my shirt pocket with her foot. And then they gave her to me, and let me hold her for just a few minutes. I was like, oh, this is awesome. In that time, it was precious. So in that moment, those are precious times. Another example, a few months ago, a business deal came through. And it's one that I had been hoping for over 4 years. I didn't think it was going to happen. It comes through, and I was like, yeah! This time is exciting, it's rewarding. So time can be all these things. Exciting, rewarding, fun. There are a wide range of things time can be. But one thing time cannot be, and that is retrieved. We can't bring it back once it's gone. So because we can't bring it back, because of what we can achieve if we use it wisely, because of what we can experience in time, time is valuable. So it makes sense that we try to get the most out of our time. Wouldn't you agree? It's valuable, so let's get the most out of it. I'm going to give 3 techniques on how to maximize our time. The first is working from a list. Each day, we should have a list of things to do, and we work down that list. A list gives us a roadmap. We wouldn't take a trip without knowing where we're going. Likewise, to get the most out of a day, to know where we're going during that day, we use a list. There's a speaker, his name's Earl Nightingale, speaker, author, study success. He says that when a person first starts using a list, they will improve their productivity by at least 25%. So we become more efficient with that roadmap for the day. A second technique, we have these items on the list. We want to work them in what I call a straight line fashion. And here's what I mean by that. Just an example to illustrate the point. I was racing a friend, a foot race. We're racing to the front door of this building. We're running up a sidewalk. The sidewalk goes straight, it curved to the left, and went to the front door. I think I'm pretty fast. And so I'm running, and I'm winning. I'm winning the race, and I hit toward that corner. I cut the corner, and I look, and he had gone across the grass to the front door. He took a shortcut. He beat me to the front door. I said he cheated, but he said he won. He beat me to the front door. He took a straight line from point A to point B. We can work our task, and we can experience events in a straight line fashion by starting at point A of the task, which is the beginning, and then working with single-minded concentration to the end of the task. This takes discipline, but it can be done, and this is done by the most productive people in our society. Start at point A, the beginning of the task, work through to point B. We can experience an event in what I call straight line fashion by making sure that during this event, whatever it is, if I'm spending time with my family, I don't want to be thinking about work. That's not the straight line way. I want to be there with my family, experiencing that time with them, and experiencing events in a straight line fashion. The third thing that we can do is, again, we have this list of items. We're working in straight line fashion, and we are making sure that each of those tasks on the list is tied to or is a step toward a goal that is important to us. So, for example, John might have a list of things to do, and included in that list are tasks or events for his family. He's trying to work to bring up his newborn to be a productive member of society. Deb might have some things on her list that include continuing to build that business. And she might want to be this mogul or whatever. She's building that business, so you'll have lines or items on your list that include that. If we list our items, if we work in a straight through fashion, if we have those items tied to our goals, we will be propelled toward those things that are most important to us. We will be almost forced to be the most productive we can possibly be. And in so doing, we will get the most out of life. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that quick intro. Thank you.
So, Daryl's speech was on body language, and I think everyone in our club would agree that even though Toastmasters disavows any knowledge of Daryl's competent communicator, it's pretty clear that you've spoken many times. So the body language speech was not as much to be focused on the content, but I wanted to highlight a few things that I wrote down here. One thing I really liked, Daryl had 3 very specific points. So when you're giving a speech, having 3 points seems to stick in people's heads for whatever reason. This is kind of an unwritten rule at our office that you have 3 points, you summarize it, and retell them. So that was all very good. The list, time management, and then steps towards the goal in a straight line. And I think if you're trying to be efficient in your time and you value what you're doing, whatever it might be, like Daryl had said, you need to take advantage of every day, every opportunity that you can to be productive for what's important to you. Some of the things I wrote down that Daryl did really well. Energy level is always great. Daryl's got a great smile personality. Even though he's a bigger guy, you don't feel like you're intimidated by him. You know, like a lot of people, like Brian, can seem a little bit threatening, you know, when they're up there. So, especially if it's politics. So you just, you know, Daryl does that really well. So body language was great. I wrote down tied towards goals, great speech and speaker. One thing we call, we're always evaluating speeches at our office, and we call it a neutral position. Mine's like this, which is bad. Daryl's, I think, is the Mr. Burns. You know the Mr. Burns? Occasionally. But there's nothing wrong with this one if that's where you go back to. It's just what you're comfortable with. And then one other thing, you had good space. We always get honest about the spacing of our feet so that it doesn't look like we're too closed off. And your feet, for the most part, were apart. But there was a point where your feet were like this. And it just kind of throws you off a little bit from a visual standpoint. But I don't think it's a big deal because then right after that you did this. So I thought the speech was really good. I wrote down some pointers that I thought were very helpful. So thank you, Daryl. As usual, very good.
Thank you.